Good morning, everyone. We will start in a few minutes. Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association webinar series. And today we will be talking about crash course guidance and counseling. Since I have some uh, difficulty in my signal, please bear with me. And for other participants in the Zoom account, please do message me if I have problems with my signal. And I will try to off my video in order to decrease or to maximize the bandwidth, especially with my concern with my internet connection. Now, the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association, so this is the accredited integrated professional organization of the PRC, or the Philippine Regulations Commission for Guidance and Counseling, as well as the PRC accredited continuing professional education provider. Uh, so we are doing this webinar as part of our commitment to all the guidance counselors and other helping professionals to promote mental health and social responsibility. So before we were known as the Philippine Guidance and Personnel Association. Now, the vision of the PGCA is to become the premier professional organization of counselors with international recognition. Our mission is to uh, we commit to be in the forefront in the development of counselors who are professional, goal-driven, committed advocates, responsive to the needs of their clientele in the promotion of their well-being, to make them proactive contributors in the pursuit of a just and humane society. So we started in 1964 through the efforts of Father Jaime Bulatao and Father Antonio Ledesma, both from Ateneo Jesuits. Father Antonio Ledesma is now the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Cagayan de Oro. So they broached the idea of a professional organization of guidance workers to Dr. Esperanza Limcaco. And after that, they have the series of meetings and they institutionalized the Philippine Guidance and Personnel Association. Uh, Fast forward, we look also as part of our vision and mission. We have international partnerships and recognition. So in 1981, the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association became a member of the Western region of uh, American Counseling Association. And we are the only counseling association in Asia that was given the privilege by the USA National Counseling Association. And in 2018, we forged partnerships with the Australian Counseling Association and the Association of Psychotherapists and Counselors Singapore, or APEX. So the activities of the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association includes annual convention, which usually happens in May. However, due to pandemic, we have to cancel that, and of course, including our major convention, which usually happens on the month of October of the year. We have also continuing professional education programs and courses. We have research and publication, so we are publishing research journals. And of course, as part of our social responsibility, we are giving these free seminars, webinar, I mean. Then we have partnerships with, right now with the NCMH for the provision of free counseling to our repatriated Filipinos, mental frontline workers and other clientele or service users. And before this webinar, we are together or in partnership with the Unilab Foundation. We have also our initial meeting with the Department of Education on the provision of mental health and psychosocial supports. These are the board of directors of the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association. Please don't forget to join us in our social media accounts. So sa Facebook po, we have the PGCA official. You can watch also our live stream via Facebook. But our main live stream is with our YouTube channel, PGCA Philippine Counselor. You can also follow us on our Twitter account, official PGCA. So some reminders, if you have concerns with your e-certificates, please do email the PGCA certificate at gmail.com. Please, or better to email the email address provided than messaging in our Facebook page. Then after the webinar, you will be given a 45-minute post-evaluation and post-test. The link will be provided in a separate post in the PGCA Facebook page. So kung makikita if you've seen a certificate, so that's where you could find the link. Before we formally start our webinar, let us, or I would like to invite you to put ourselves into prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Loving and gracious Father, we thank you for the gifts you have given to us this wonderful day, the gift of life, the gift of friendships, the gift of community, the gift of persons. We ask you to bless us as we have this webinar and guide us always as we continue our efforts for the welfare of our children, of the general public, and for the Philippines as a whole. Guide us always. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good morning once again. This is Francis Ray Subong, and please join me in our discussion for this morning, Crash Course Guidance and Counseling. Siguro, you will think or you will wonder, ano ba talaga yung guidance and counseling? In the past few years and in the past few months, we might have seen this posts or memes in our social media sites, especially in the Facebook. On the first part, there is this question: Ilang beses ka ba or ilang beses ka nang na-guidance? It seems that going to guidance counselor or guidance and counseling itself is or can be equated to hell. Or for some, they would describe their school experience like this one. Just imagine, no? Kaapat or 4 times na guidance, 12 times na nag-absent and 7 daw na nag-cutting. Just imagine, this post only garnered 476 likes. Yet, it has 21,000 shares. Just imagine, this 21,000 who shared this post, ang nakakita lamang or may nakakita na 10. Oh, how much is that? Ilang tao yung nakakita na? Yun pala, they have the impression that yung guidance office or guidance counselor or guidance counseling is more of the disciplinary one. Yung ginagawa kang scarecrow, tinatakot ka. Or they would like to portray guidance as counselors as those persons na matanda, masungit, disciplinarian, or the other extreme. Sobrang bait, sobrang lambing, sobrang maalaga. So that's how they would look on guidance counselors. But ano ba talaga yung guidance counselor or guidance in counseling? Let's try to look on this quote by former Secretary of Education Alejandro Rosas before the Superintendent's Convention in Baguio. It's maybe around 1950s. So para kay Secretary Rosas at that time, so he addressed the superintendents. I hope we have DepEd personnel here, aside from our teachers. Maybe we have our supervisors here, or even our division superintendents, or those policymakers in the DepEd. If we try to look on the history, ano ba kahalaga yung guidance? We can try to look sa sinabi po ni Secretary Rosas. So every citizen should find his suitable and rightful place in the socio-economic order and contribute every ounce of his energy and talent to the development and progress of the country. This can be made possible only through teachers, especially guidance counselors. Hence, the need of a more coordinated, functional guidance program. Just imagine, before, I think this was before the enactment of the Magna Carta for teachers. In the Magna Carta for teachers, guidance counselors are included as teachers. So before, in the 1950s, wala pang guidance, may guidance counselor naman, pero this is part of a teacher. So they have this notion po na every teacher now is a guidance counselor. Now, we will see if that case is still true today. So, what is the evolution of guidance and counseling? Let's try to look. So, yung guidance or school counseling formally started at the turn of the 20th century. So, na-highlight lang siya or talagang merong big steps at the start of the 20th century. So yung foundations of counseling and guidance principles can be traced way back in ancient Greece and Rome with our philosophers, with the philosophical teachings of Plato on, of course, when we talk about philosophy, we will always go back to these two giants of philosophy. Plato, with his school of thought on idealism and Aristotle realism. So some of the techniques and skills of modern day counselors were practiced by Catholic priests in the Middle Ages, as can be seen by the dedication to the concept of confidentiality within the confessional. So highlight po, confidentiality. For our Catholic brethren here, so our priests, meron po silang seal of confession that cannot be broken. So counseling can be traced to this practice also. Formal guidance programs using specialized textbooks did not start until the turn of the 20th century. Pero in 1700 or 1800, in Italy we have a writer then, but he talked on the career guidance. Industrial revolution, there is difficulties people living in urban slums. There is a widespread use of child labor and outreach the many. So one of its consequences ng industrial revolution was the compulsory education movement. And shortly after, thereafter, the vocational guidance movement was concerned with guiding people into the workforce to become productive members of society. If we look back at guidance or vocational guidance was born because of the idea during the Industrial Revolution that we need human resources, we need labor. And in order to have this labor, we need to educate, we need to shape their minds that after education, pupunta sila sa labor market, sa labor force, and to become productive members of society. The practice of guidance and counseling or counseling in the Philippines was patterned po sa US. So in 1900s, we have and the vocational guidance movement. Of course, in World War I, the Great War, syempre, you need a fighting force. And you need assessment. So how can we select able-bodied men? Hindi lang able-bodied, but talagang built for war. So that's where psychological assessments come in. After the World War I, and before the World War II, there is this Great Depression. And there was an expansion of counseling roles beyond vocational concerns. So hindi lang school to work, but of course, they touch already the academic, the social, the personal aspect of human person. During, of course, same also with the World War II, more of the psychological assessments in military. But after the World War II, nung bumalik na yung mga veterans, there was personal and career problems. And what we are dealing right now, for example, is more of the problems of our veterans would somehow be PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's where our counseling comes in. And also aside from that our veterans are suffering from war shock as they have known before. Syempre yung veterans natin, most of them 18, 19, 20, or in the early 20s. When they went back to States or after the war, there was an influx to higher education. So you need their guidance and counseling to put them into place. During the Cold War period, there is an increased emphasis on school counseling as part of the National Defense Education Act of the US. Siyempre, they are concerned with what the Soviets would do, so they have to prepare. So that's the highlights of the guidance and counseling in the US, which the Philippines pattern din. So ito po, for appropriate people, for leadership positions, and of course, we identify or the performance of large group. So in 1913 in US, they have the National Vocational Guidance Association. And the vocational counselors are often teachers appointed to assume the extra duties of the position. Yes, we have to consider that before, yes, totoo yung teachers are guidance counselors. And from time to time, I would often hear that notion na some teachers would say, every teacher naman is a guidance counselor eh. Now, after the World War II, a strong trend away from testing appeared. So yung counseling and guidance, hindi lang on the testing, but we focus on persons. And this was led by American psychologist Carl Rogers. So many in the counseling field adopted his emphasis on non-directive, or later, this is called client-centered counseling. In Carl Rogers' client-centered counseling as one of the fina-follow natin, or one of our principles, is that we help the person. We are not directing him or her. Rather, we help him or her to make up a decision. We do not take away from him or her his power to decide. So Carl Rogers published Counseling and Psychotherapy in 1942 and Client-Centered Therapy in 1951. So the two works of Carl Rogers defined a new counseling theory, so which in complete contrast to previous theories of counseling and psychology. So it minimized counselor advice giving. Later, we will discuss what's the difference between advising, guidance, and counseling. If we go back to the history, ito po ay sinimulan po ni Carl Rogers. To 1990s, in the school counseling, the American School Counseling Association, meron silang national standards for counseling, which even now we are ginagamit natin as pattern or as model. So yung ASCA model, focusing on 3 domains: academic, career, and personal social. We have an updated domains for the ASCA model, which I think for now we will not discuss. Now let's try to look on the Philippines. So we first reviewed or took a glance anong nangyari sa US, which the model we use. Now, so what is the history of counseling in the Philippines? So according to Father Bulatao, in the pre-colonial Philippines, just like our Indonesian and Malaysian neighbors, so counseling still shows vestiges of indigenous help seeking. So it is a help seeking process. So it's either through superstition, reliance on elders, faith healers, and fortune tellers, and belief in the supernatural. So yun po yung area na tingnan natin on contextualizing counseling in the Philippines. So when Ferdinand Magellan colonized the Philippines, it resulted to 80% of Filipinos becoming Roman Catholics. Then after the Treaty of Paris, America or US occupied Philippines from 1898 to 1941. And one of the greatest contribution of the American occupation was the public school system or the educational system, which at that time since we were part of America, their guidance movement or vocational guidance movement uh, pumunta din dito, or was applied also here in the Philippines. So according to the research of Rose, Salazar and Mania, the language of instruction in the country is English at the time, and so greater respect is given to anything American over Filipino. Same also with the training of our counselors and psychologists. So we have still that uh, remnants of that mindset, but maybe some later researchers would try to tell us otherwise, hopefully. So most of our Filipino counselors and psychologists, and even after World War II, were trained in the US, and they were the ones who brought back the school of thoughts, or to the Philippines. Now in the Philippines, this is our milestones. So it was conceived especially during the American occupation. During the American occupation, there were two colleges in Manila providing guidance services, and of course, the establishment of the first psychological clinic at the University of the Philippines. So the growth of guidance in counseling was hampered, of course, by the World War II. However, in 40s to 60s, there was this counselor training, as I have discussed, when our number of Filipinos were trained in the various sciences and in various fields in the US before and just after the World War II, and the birth of professional organizations. Now, if we look po sa history ng counseling in the Philippines, there were two organizations, na tinitingnan natin. First is the Psychological Association of the Philippines, or the PAP. So it was founded in 1862. PAP also publishes their Journal of Psychology. You have to understand sa ating viewers na psychology and guidance and counseling are interrelated. It seems they are sisters. Maybe we can discuss further that, but from this context, in the Philippines, only psychologists and counselors are allowed to do counseling. What's the difference of a psychologist from a counselor? Psychologists can diagnose from the DSM-5. They can diagnose. Example, yung client po, merong PTSD or general anxiety disorder, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's yung psychologists natin. Yung counselors, on the other hand, as I have mentioned, it was the idea was brought up by the late Father Bulatao and now Archbishop Antonio Ledesma. So we were formed in 1964. Now, Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association, or counselors, ito naman yung pagkakaiba niya. We focus more on the career. But for counselors and psychologists, we overlap on the practice of counseling. We are using techniques based sa theories, but the psychologists can diagnose, but the counselors could not. And while the psychologists can diagnose, On the other hand, the counselors can do the career guidance. I think, or based on the information available, our PRB members also from uh, the board of psychology is joining us right now. So if you look right now on the members of the professional regulatory boards of guidance and counseling and psychology, actually, I think all of them have dual or both counselors and psychologists. So very related talaga si guidance and counseling and psychology. Now, so in 1970s and in 1990s, so the movement in counseling was primarily indigenized. So more of the contextualization on the assessments, constructs, and theories. So we follow the counseling model in the US, but we contextualize it to our realities and culture and with our societal issues. So prior 2004, counselors and other mental health workers did not need a license to practice, nor was there a regulatory board to ensure adequate training and ethical practice. Okay. So in 2004, RA 9258, otherwise known as the Guidance and Counseling Act of 2004, was enacted. Uh, you might wonder, bakit, why there's a need to enact a law professionalizing the practice of guidance and counseling? Well, our framers and those authors of this idea may have seen different malpractices. Just imagine someone would do counseling and no one supervises him or her, or no one checks the quality of uh, of that provision of service, or you do counseling yet you don't update yourself through trainings. So our psychologists a few years after followed suit by enactment of RA 10029, otherwise known as the Psychology Act of 2009. And through the years, because of well, the priority for mental health was not that given emphasis. So the mental health advocates in 2018 pushed na maisa batas yung RA 11036, otherwise known as the Mental Health Act of 2018. And 2 years after, sadly, hindi pa po fully implemented yung ating Mental Health Act. So with the Act, with the RA 9258, we have professional regulatory board of guidance and counseling, which is under the administrative control and supervision of the PRC. Now, let's try to look on the comparative table of counseling practice. I have selected some countries para makita natin po anong pinagkaiba natin, or at least we can have an idea anong nangyayari with the counseling practice all over the world. Now, I have selected countries here na at least we have strong connections. So first, so in the Philippines, yung regulatory authority natin is the PRC. Yung scope of practice, we are right now in the process of specialization. The model we use now. So what is the history of counseling in the Philippines? Okay, my apologies for that. In the US, they have their state boards and specializations. There are specializations in each state. So they don't have right now a national certification, but rather more of the state boards. So for those counselors, actually, even as we look on the practices of the US, for example, on their ethics, one counselor can be licensed in one state, but is not licensed in the other state. And that also affects, especially in the provision of tele counseling. In Australia, which we have, or in 2018, we have a mutual recognition. So yung professional, ang regulating authority nila is the ACA, or the professional organization. And it's the ACA that provides their specialization certificate. Singapore, they have ang regulatory authority nila is the professional organization. And also in New Zealand, right now we are trying to establish we are trying to establish partnership and maybe soon regular recognition. So in New Zealand, they have two counseling association, the NZ, the Counselors Association, and the other one is the Korean Counselors Association. So the specializations is certified or certified by the organizations. So you could see that it's for us in the Philippines, it's the government that regularizes the practice. Now, professionalizing of the practice of guidance and counseling. So, when we say guidance and counseling, kanina nakita natin na yung ating sa first natin na picture, no, yung mga bata nakapalibot sa isang quote-unquote guidance na medyo matanda na. And as always, ito po yung nangyayari. We still have that stigma na mas nakakatakot pa pala na pumunta sa guidance office compare sa principal's office, or mas nakatakot pa pala pumunta sa guidance compare sa discipline office. Now let's try to understand, to our dear educators, the general public, to the parents, or even sa students natin. I hope we have students po from UMS sa ating basic education, and sa ating college students, maybe especially those na BS Ed or mga sa education, and even mga psych students natin. When we say guidance and counseling, it is a profession which involves the use of an integrated approach. So hindi lang single dimension, rather it's an integrated, holistic approach to the development of a well-functioning individual. Again, well-functioning individual. And primarily helping him or her first to utilize his or her potentials to the fullest. Okay? We maximize the potential of our clients. Second, plan his or her future in accordance with his or her abilities, interests, and needs. And yung functions ni guidance and counseling includes counseling, psychological testing, which includes personality, career interest, study orientation, mental ability, and aptitude. Research, placement, and further includes group process, teaching and practicing guidance and counseling subjects, particularly subjects given in licensure examination, human development services. Very important na yung nagtiteach ng guidance and counseling or counseling subjects are licensed professionals. Just imagine, or I have this experience. Um, it was I was told that a few years ago there is this school na when a student there was this student who took the uh, comprehensive exam sa master's degree niya on guidance and counseling. However, one of the uh, teachers or one of the examiners on guidance and counseling area is not even a licensed counselor. So that student, okay, I'm a bit choppy. Uh, Hold on for a while. I'll try to check my internet connection. Am I good na? Okay. So going back to that story, no. So the student, uh, okay. So the student raised a concern to the school. How come that a non-licensed counselor be an examiner to the uh, to an examination, no? Wherein yung kumukuha or yung content of the examination is a board or subjects that we've given in the licensure examination. And after that, the school or the higher education institution uh, accepted the idea, and of course that they changed the practice na lahat na ng mga examiners are licensed counselors. Now, who are the guidance counselors? Or sino po ang guidance counselor? So hindi lang basta-basta na sabihin natin na guidance counselor ka or ako, guidance counselor ako. Or even sa ating sister na sister na profession, the psychologist. Hindi mo pwedeng tawagin yung yung sarili mo na psychologist or counselor if number one, you're not a natural person. Tao talaga. There are two kinds of persons in law. The natural or the human being itself and the juridical persons. So juridical persons, ito po yung mga corporations. So secondly, there should be a registered and issued na valid certificate of registration and professional identification card. So you could not call yourself, for example, a guidance counselor if wala ka pong certificate of registration or professional identification card na valid. Just like in the psychologist, you cannot call yourself a psychologist if wala ka pong lisensya. So one psychologist would say in his webinar, mga kolorum. So I hope even in the guidance counseling profession, sana po wala naman tayong kolorum na mga guidance counselors. And I hope sa ating general public na with us ngayon, please help us educate these certain individuals who might be misrepresenting themselves as guidance counselors, yet they don't have a license. Okay? So, valid. When we say valid, dapat hindi expired yung license mo. Okay? So, very important for our professionals. This is a reminder to myself na we have to we have to renew our licenses. And of course, forms for a fee, salary, or other forms of compensation, and the functions of guidance and counseling. So, paano maging guidance counselor? So, you need to take an examination. Before, merong part ng RA 9258 and even RA 10029 or sa mga psychologists, we have this grandfather's clause. Grandfather's clause is a provision in the law wherein those practicing and those with qualifications may be professionalized or may be given license without examination. However, it is only given for a certain period of time. After that, all those who are aspiring to become a professional will be required of an examination. So sa ating po mga interested na maging guidance counselors, so all applicants for registration for the practice of guidance and counseling shall be required to undergo a licensure examination. So usually yung licensure examination for guidance counselors happens every August. But for now, it was postponed because of the COVID threat. So yung in charge po diyan or yung ating mga professional regulatory board members. Also in this webinar, we have also with us yung ating mga board members po. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Lesbiminda Guzman, ng ating chair, Dr. Carmen Pabiton, member, and also Dr. Elena Morada, member. So how can you be qualified to take an examination? So klaro po sa ating section 13 ng RA 9258, in order to qualify for the examination, an applicant must, at time of the filing the application, must be citizen of the Republic of the Philippines. So the citizen of the Republic of the Philippines, we can find that in our section 4 of our Philippine Constitution, whose mother and father is a Filipino citizen, or being a naturalized one. Except po, you're a Filipino citizen based on our Constitution and not how you reside. For example, Panatang Makabayan. Or a foreigner whose country has reciprocity with the Philippines in the practice of guidance and counseling. So we have mutual foreign reciprocity. For now, I think it's I don't have the data kung anong countries po ang we have a foreign reciprocity when it comes to the practice of guidance and counseling. Secondly, if you want to apply to become a guidance counselor, you have not has not been convicted of any offense involving moral turpitude by a competent court. When we say convicted, this is final and executory, which would involve moral turpitude. Okay. Thirdly, holder of a bachelor's degree in guidance and counseling or in other allied disciplines and a master's degree in guidance and counseling from an institution in the Philippines or abroad recognized or accredited by CHED. If you have noticed, I have placed or highlighted the end there. Bakit end? Okay. Dapat dalawa. Way back in 2014, after I passed my licensure exam for guidance counselor, I have made a letter, or I wrote a letter to the Civil Service Commission Region 6, telling them that they might need to look before on the Civil Service Memorandum Circular number 16, series of 2011. Yung civil service po, sila yung nagbibigay ng qualification standards. Way back then, yung qualifications ng guidance counselors, in order daw na maging guidance counselor, you need to have only, based on the qualification standards, bachelor's degree lang. But I pointed out na based sa law, as you can see that there's a holder of bachelor's degree and master's degree. So dalawa po. So quoting also the letter of PRC Commissioner then Nicolas Lapena to CSC Director Azucena Perez Esleta, sabi niya, in addition to bachelor's degree in guidance counseling, the applicant for the board licensure examination for guidance counselors shall be a holder of master's degree. So dalawa. Thus making MA or master's degree the minimum education qualification when taking the board examination. So 2 years later, we have raised the concern from the region to the Central Office of the Civil Service. So early in 2017, the Civil Service Commission issued Memorandum Circular number 2 series of 2017 correcting the qualification standards of guidance counselors. So kung makikita nyo, in the public service, kung makikita nyo yung guidance counselor na qualification standards, yung minimum qualification is master's degree when it comes to educational qualifications. So bakit kaya, you might have in your mind, bakit kaya ang taas-taas ng qualification ng guidance counselor? Bakit masters? Bakit hindi lang kaya, bakit hindi lang bachelor's degree? You might need into consideration that sa human development ng tao, the brain is fully developed at the age of 25. So just imagine yung counselor mo at the bachelor's degree before the K-12 is 20 years old plus 2 years na or 3 years na guidance na master's degree. So magka-counseling na siya by 23 or 24 years old. So his or her brain is not yet fully developed. Just imagine the effect on that. Secondly, right now, so we have additional 2 years. So it seems tama-tama lang talaga na by age of 25, makatapos siya ng master's degree at makapasa sa board exam. Secondly, bakit kailangan master's degree? Because we are following international standards. If we look sa ating kanina sa comparative table, in the United States, the minimum education qualification standards for counselors and even psychologists is master's degree. Same also with Australia, same also with New Zealand. So it's an international standards. And a few years ago, we have the Philippine Qualifications Framework. And the PQF is not only PQF per se, it is a law. So right now, being master's degree in guidance and counseling or a guidance counselor with a master's degree, and of course, even as our psychologists, we are at par with the international standards, which the minimum educational qualification for counselors is a master's degree. Just imagine yung tumuturok or nagbibigay sa'yo ng prescription is a pre-med graduate, or the one who is representing you in the court of law is a poli-sci graduate. Just imagine what will happen. So that's how things work also when we talk about guidance and counseling or even a practice of psychology. So ano yung scope of examination ng licensure exam for guidance and counselors? So we have following subjects or the areas: philosophical, psychological, and sociological foundation of guidance, counseling theories, tools, and techniques, psychological testing, organization and administration of guidance service, group process, program development, and career guidance. So for those interested na magiging guidance counselor, you might take first the master's degree in guidance and counseling. Then when you take the board exam, ito po yung weight niya per subject. So counseling theories, tools and techniques 35%, group process 20%, psych testing 15%, then career guidance, foundation of guidance, then organization, you have 10% each. So a licensed guidance counselor, example, ipapadala natin sa gera si guidance counselor. Ano po yung kanyang baril? The baril of guidance counselor is his or her program. Okay. So the guidance program is one of the counselor's weapons in the provision of his guidance, of his services. So guidance program is a system of services designed to improve the adjustment of each and every person for whom it is organized. That's why kailangan yung guidance counselor or guidance program in schools, for example. Just imagine yung school natin, if we even look on the positive psychology on the aspect of learning, lahat ng achievement pero wala ng well-being. Anong mangyayari sa atin? Are we forming students na malaking brains but walang puso, or maybe intellectual monsters? Very important. Then, since guidance in counseling, it started from vocational guidance, which is now what we call career guidance. So career guidance program is one of the biggest chunk of services, or in the provision of guidance and counseling services. So in the career guidance, we help an individual come up with a career plan to meet his or her life goals and to implement that plan. Also, with the RA 11036, otherwise known as the Mental Health Act, si guidance counselor po is a mental health professional din. So, the guidance counselor, meron din siya pong mental health program. So, mental health program is a system of services designed to maintain the state of well-being of an individual in order that she or he may realize his or her abilities and potential, copes adequately with the normal stress of life, displays resilience in the face of extreme life events, works productively and fully, and is able to make positive contribution to the community. That is why napasok po si guidance counselor as one of the mental health professionals. Kasi basically, guidance and counseling is more of the adjustment. So if a person can adjust as part of the mental health continuum, it's part of the prevention and the promotion of mental health. Of course, because daw sa kulang ng guidance counselor, so we have this so-called career guidance advocacy. So kung hindi mo maibibigay yung program, so you go to advocacy. So based sa ating RA 10533, otherwise known as the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, Career Guidance Advocacy Program is a system of activities designed to guide our secondary level learners to choose their career tracks, or this can be implemented by non-RGCs. Okay. Now let's go to the services. Ano po yung guidance services? Siyempre, sa guidance services, hindi po yan or hindi po included dyan yung discipline. So we have to correct that notion that the guidance counselor is a disciplinarian or a prefect of discipline. Worst, I have received some reports na yung counselors nga ginagawang registrar. I hope hindi nangyayari yan or hindi na nangyayari. So we start with the counseling service. This is one of the main services of guidance and counseling. So when we say counseling, so counseling is a dynamic personal interaction between the counselor and the counselees. So it can be done either face-to-face, and right now in the COVID pandemic, counseling can be made through different mode of delivery, maybe tele or web counseling. So Malalaman natin na counseling yan if the counselor employs methods, approaches, and techniques based sa mga theories ng ating mga psychologists. And counseling service is, or counseling is, isang purpose niya is to enhance the counselees or service users interpersonal development and competencies. More of the adjustment. Counseling can maybe given maybe individually or group. And please remember, counseling service is the heart of the guidance program. You could not have a guidance program without a counseling service. So for example, if sa ating mga kasamahan sa DepEd may mga supervisors na papasubmit na, okay, ano yung guidance program yun ng school? Just imagine submitting a guidance program without its heart. Walang counseling service. Or worse, yung iba, magsasabi na, yes, I'm doing counseling. Hindi naman siya licensed. Hindi naman allowed by law. Now, when we say counseling, based sa ating Rule 3 ng IRR or Implementing Rules and Regulations of RA 9258, counseling is considered synonymous to and interchangeable with guidance and counseling. That's why po yung ating mga psychologists, based sa kanilang law, RA 10029, they have qualified the word counseling into psychological counseling to respect their sister, the guidance counselors. Diba? If you try to look sa ating Psychology Act of 2009, klaro po doon na our psychologists are doing or giving psychological counseling. That is why when we hear, for example, someone who will say, we are doing counseling. What kind of counseling is that? Do you know the process of counseling? An ethical consideration in doing counseling is the practice of guidance and counseling depends on gaining and honoring the trust of the clients. So, hindi basta-basta ang pagiging guidance counselor. And isang consideration din is how can you, example, gain the trust of clients if ikaw mismo, for example, hindi naman presentable or you don't have an adequate space for you to receive clients. Diyan papasok yung concern natin on the work of a counselor. I have heard it so many times. There are teachers who are saying that ang mga counselors wala naman yung trabaho eh. Pa-makeup or yan. Yun yung sinasabi, pa-upo-upo. Or for some, they would say, sir, yung guidance office namin, we are sharing one room. Then I have my divider lang. Yung divider namin is a curtain. So maririnig yung pinag-uusapan namin sa ng client. How can you trust? Example, how can a client trust someone or a counselor if number one, hindi naman siya presentable, hindi naman siya competent. For example, hindi niya alam yung ginagawa niya. So very important dyan ang training. Or the space kung saan sila nag-uusap. So one of the ethical considerations is that you cannot do counseling in canteen or just under the tree, baka may makarinig. So trust, just imagine. So one consideration also is our guidance office. So if curtain lang yung divider, marinig ng iba, how can a client be assured that yung sinasabi niya hindi i-chismis sa iba or hindi malalaman ng iba at yan, i-chismis. Okay. So very important yan in the practice of guidance and counseling, which I hope our educators tuning in, our school heads, and even our policymakers would look on that aspect. Kasi, how can we provide guidance and counseling services if hindi naman kami trusted ng ng aming clientele. So keeping trust requires an attentiveness to the quality of listening and respect offered to clients. Culturally appropriate ways of communicating that are courteous and clear, maintaining respect for privacy and dignity, and careful attention to clients' consent and confidentiality. Baka siguro one question din, why do we need to, or at the time, way back in 2004, why there is a need to professionalize guidance and counseling? One consideration is that accountability. Let's put the case of a doctor, medical doctor, and an albularyo. So a medical doctor, nagkamali. So may habol si patient with the doctor of malpractice. But if pumunta si client sa isang albularyo and worst comes to worst, nag-worsen pa ang situation, anong habol natin? Accountability sa albularyo. So, siguro dito maintindihan ng ating mga viewers na there is this law, or even maybe some people from our legislators who are tuning in. Counseling was professionalized because of ethics, and also counselors to be accountable with their practice. So that is part of our code or manual of technical standards for registered and licensed counselors. So ito po yung counseling process according to Cormier and Hackney, 1993. This is the counseling process. So we have the rapport building, relationship building. That is why very important yung trust. Assessment and diagnosis. I have italicized the diagnosis part because since this is US, nakikis-cross po yung practice nila doon. But in the Philippines, counselors could not diagnose, only our psychologists and even our psychiatrists. So do only the assessment part. Then after na makita natin yung assessment or the tests ng ating clientele or client, we go now to the formulation of counseling goals. So anong gusto nyo mangyari? After that, in order to attain our goals, we would use, during the intervention and problem solving, techniques. Then it would go into sessions. Usually, counseling, the ideal time for counseling is 1 hour. Then we have termination and follow-up. Not all, hindi lahat, or the counseling walang forever. So we need to terminate also. So that yung ating client would be productive then, and well, of course, kung kaya niya na achieve niya na yung goal niya, then we have to end the counseling session or the process. Then of course, part dyan din po ang research and evaluation. For those familiar with the psychological first aid, we have core action principles: look, listen, and link. We will know that the PFA provider is now venturing into counseling if he or she uses counseling uses techniques in counseling, just like, for example, cognitive behavior therapy, solution-based, solution-focused, or reality therapy, etc. When a PFA provider would venture on the details, on the whys, then he or she might already be venturing into counseling. That is why in my previous webinar on the psychological first aid, basic lang talaga, 3 L's, look, listen, and link. Being there, nandyan ka lang po. Tingnan natin may need. We will listen kung anong i-open up niya, but pag hindi na natin kaya, we have to link it to the right mental health professionals. Okay. Now, It's from website from United Kingdom. Ano po yung differences between advice, guidance, and counseling? When we advise, it's only one-way process. We give opinion, we make judgment, and making a recommendation. More of the persuasive. Guidance counselors don't give advice. We can recommendation, but generally, in counseling in the counseling process, we don't provide advices. So advice is a no-no. It can bring more harm than good, because you are, in a sense, you are imposing something to a client. Plus, you are, kumbaga, kinuha mo sa kanya yung power niya to decide. On the other hand, when we say counseling, it's more of the facilitative. It's a two-way exchange. Okay? Wherein, ikaw na counselor, you facilitate. So you both explore problems. You try to both understand the problems, the counselee and the counselor, and resolve. The one who will resolve this is the counselee. Well, the counselor brings up, ito po, these are your possible options. So sinabi mo, these are the possible options or resolutions to your problems. So it's the one, it's the client who will be the one to decide for his or her future. On the other hand, when we say guidance, it's a one-way exchange. So it's more of the educating or psychoeducation, influencing, instructing. It's more of encouraging. So guidance and counseling. Now there is a shift now with the developments, especially with the mental health law. Right now there are some, well, siguro, tinitingnan din ng mga anggulo. On the mental health, more of the medical area. We need to look into consideration also the practice of guidance and counseling here. Because in US, right now, wala na pong guidance counselor doon. It's rather school counselors. Now, another part or another service ng guidance counselor is psychological testing. So psychological testing is the administration and interpretation of standardized tests. Just imagine, we have also this report na aptitude, standardized aptitude test in our basic education na hindi of counselors when it comes to that provision of standardized test. After all, part ng guidance and counseling is the provision of psychological testing. So bakit kailangan ng psychological test? So identifies not just weaknesses of a person, also their strength, and measures an individual's performance at the same time. As an analogy, when you go to medical doctor, di ba, nagpapa laboratory. Okay. For a while, I have okay. Now, kung pumunta tayo sa medical doctor, okay. When we go to a medical doctor, before we go for consultation, nagtingnan ni doctor. Same also with the counselors and even psychologists. No? Before going into formulation of counseling goals or in the intervention, we need to understand also, aside from the presenting problem of the client, we need also to look sa kanyang background through or mga tendencies or weaknesses or strengths sa aspect of testing or assessment. So very important. So psychological testing sa guidance counselor na area, test includes following types: personality, career, interest, mental ability, aptitude, achievement, learning, and study orientation. Now, very important then that since there is already an influx of young uh, psychologists and young counselors. So, dati, when we say psychologist or counselor, these are the ones ngayon, yung mga institution natin, nagki-criss-cross lang sila. But it's very important then we have to maintain that understanding between psychologists and guidance counselors na nagki-criss-cross din yung ating practice. So in psychological testing, test would include personality, career, interest, mental ability, aptitude. Ito po yung sinasabi ko, aptitude test or interest test ng ating mga secondary learners, especially the NCAE. Achievement and learning and study orientation. Now, career guidance, and I quote from one of the PRB members of our psychology board, which Dr. Villar is also a counselor. According to his book, career guidance is a process of helping an individual come up with a personal career plan. So we have a career plan by collecting, collating, and evaluating various information about the self and the world of work to help the client meet his or her life goals and take necessary steps to implement that plan. So guidance, which right now in the basic education and even in the higher education, dito po mostly nakikilala si guidance counselor o the career guidance. Pero remember there is career counseling also, counseling in the area of career. Then psychological testing can also include career there. That is why we have aptitude, we have interests. Okay. Now, of course, research hindi mawawala as part of the guidance services. Mag-research on, especially for policy formulation, anong needs ng community, anong kailangan for improvement, what are the new strategies, is it effective, or the techniques or intervention, or we need to modify or improve, or is it good na? And we can also, through research, discover different alternatives for attaining goals. So very important in the practice of guidance and counseling that we have the research. So placement, this is more of sa college since dito po yung nagpo-facilitate si counselor. Hello everyone, are we good? My apologies to our viewers regarding this one. To our participants, please chat me if we are okay. Again, to our participants in the Zoom, please chat me if we're okay. Thank you, Father RC. Again, my apologies. This is one consideration also that we have to look. Yeah, and it's quite also stressful to have this one na putol tayo. Okay, so let's proceed now. Sa placement service po, the service it is the service that facilitates the clientele's movement to the appropriate educational or occupational level or program. Then entry to appropriate co-curricular or extracurricular activities and pursuit for further education or other employment. So if my career guidance tayo sa basic education, so placement ito po sa tertiary level. Then, aside from placement, we have referral service also. Pag hindi namin kaya or there are things that we need help, we refer also into other agencies, organizations. We tap them also for partnerships and linkages. So in order to give better assistance to our counselee's resolution. For example, if yung counselee is abused, then we have to refer it to our social workers since sila po mandated by law, sila po yung the one who will take charge of that. Okay. Now also in our guidance office or in guidance counsel services, we have individual inventory. So it's a collection of extensive information. Now, for some schools, we have a folder or portfolio of our students or counselees. But with the enactment of Data Privacy Act, please remember we are also covered by the provisions of the Data Privacy Act, aside from our right to privileged communication. Then, since we are shifting now to new normal, it's important also that this one individual inventory, so hopefully we can have the database for our students or learners. So information service, isa din pong service na pwedeng ibigay ng ating mga guidance counselors. We provide comprehensive and systematic collection and dissemination of information outside the individual through various methods or programs. This is equivalent to our psychoeducation also, on their personal, educational, and occupational planning. So, ang dami palang pwedeng gawin ni guidance counselor pero hindi lang siya na tatap or hindi lang siya na ma-maximize. Just imagine about scholarships, about information about adjustments sa school. So, our counselors can work hand in hand with our nurses, for example, tobacco control, substance abuse, or reproductive health. So our nurses and our guidance counselors can work hand in hand with this service. Now, since we're running out of time, we would like to present this one, laws affecting the practice of guidance and counseling. So few laws lang siguro. So we have to consider in, of course, 1987 Philippine Constitution, BP 232, or the Education Act of 1982, RA 10533, RA 11036, and RA 11260. So in our 1987 Philippine Constitution, ang ating educational institutions shall promote vocational efficiency. Just imagine dito, vocational efficiency, which is directly direct po sa ating career guidance. So isang consideration or isang mandato po ng ating educational institution ang career guidance. Even before 1987, prior 1987 Constitution, BP 232 or the Education Act of 1982 provides rights or the right of students in school. Just imagine, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is a right ng student po to school guidance and counseling for decisions and selecting the alternatives in fields of work suited to his potentialities. So, right po. It is a right of a student. So, just imagine if there are inactions sa ating mga policy makers dahil daw kakaunti yung guidance. But I hope our policy makers will understand that we are violating their rights if we don't hire counselors, if we don't give due emphasis to counselors in our basic education or even in our educational system. We are violating the right of our students. Just imagine, nagtuturo tayo na just and humane society, yet we are the #1 violators or child abusers or child rights violators of our students. Now, in RA 10533, since kakaunti daw yung counselors, ito, so career guidance and counseling advocacy. Advocacy na lang kasi hindi daw license. So, ano yung advocacy? So, activities po ito. So a reminder in RA 10533, klaro po yung Enhanced Basic Education Act natin na yung pag hindi ka guidance counselor, you cannot do career guidance and counseling. So they have RA 10533 highlighted Section 27 of RA 258. Ito po ang prohibition against practice of guidance and counseling. So no person shall engage in the practice of guidance counseling if wala kang valid na certificate of registration and valid professional identification card or special permit. Pag expired ng lisensya mo, please, magpa-renew ka po. Since you might be engaging in an illegal practice. Then, make representations to public or to a third person as a licensed guidance counselor. Please take note of that. Guidance counselor po ako. Are you licensed po? Okay? Just like that. Or sa ating mga psychologists, those who are in, for example, very common yan sa ating local media. So sa ating local media, please ask our resource persons, for example, if they are licensed psychologists, baka kolorong po yun. And for our counselors, allow anybody to use his or her license to enable such unqualified individual to engage in practice of guidance and counseling. Okay, pinapagamit niyo po yung inyong license. Just imagine na under naman po ako sa supervision ni license ganito. Parang there are cases just like when you undergo yung notarization process. Now, counselors have to strictly follow the ethics defined in the Code of Ethics and Code of Technical Standards. So, pag may unethical practice, doon po makikita natin ano mga unethical considerations and mga prohibitions in the practice of guidance and counseling. Now, career advocacy. So, ito lang po yung saklaw ng career advocacy. Activities lang po. Ito lang po. For our students, for our school heads, our teachers, our educational leaders, career advocacy po, hindi career guidance. It's career advocacy. Please take note of the terminology. Ang magagawa lang po ng non-licensed counselors are career advocacy activities. Ito po, provision of career information, advising. Just imagine counselors, we don't subscribe to advising because advising is a one-way process lang po. It's more of imposing. So I don't know we don't know with the framers of the law if they are updated or have they consulted with the counselors during the time of the enactment of 10533. And of course, another activity sa career advocacy is coordinating and making referrals. But not limited to career talks, career and job fairs, parents orientation, seminar workshops on career decision making. So yun lang po yung pwedeng magawa ng ating mga career advocates. Peer facilitators. So pag career advocates ka, you are not registered counselors. Career advocates are homeroom advisors. And peer facilitators, these are career students, hindi po peer counselors. Okay? So role ng DepEd sa 10533. So hopefully, yes, integrated na po. We have right now still on the process of having career talagang comprehensive guidance and counseling program. But we have already started with our grade 11 and grade 12 career guidance modules. We have also regular career advocacy activities. So career assessments, hopefully counselors must be included here. Okay. Now let's go to Mental Health Act. Okay. So ito po, when we say mental health, it's about the state of well-being. Again, yung tao, mentally healthy if he or she realizes his own potentials and abilities, he or she can cope adequately with the normal stresses of life. Merong resilience po, can work productively and fruitfully, and can provide or can give positive contribution. Pag ganun, pag may kulang, if hindi na siya maka-work productively, hindi na siya maka-cope adequately, he might need or she might need mental health services, which is or ito po yung mga mental health services: psychosocial, psychiatric, and neurologic. Psychiatric or neurologic services are provided by our medical doctors. Counselors po are included in the provision of psychosocial services. So mental health also includes in the promotion, prevention, treatment, and aftercare. So when we say mental health professionals, included po tayo as guidance counselors. Pero we have to consider also that medical doctors, these are psychiatrists, nurses, if we have psychiatric nurses, social workers, since they can do case management, for psychologists and counselors who can do counseling. Okay? So, but open po ito for interpretation since there is any other appropriately trained and qualified person with specific skills. I hope that our DOH soon will consult the other professionals with these specific skills. Very important, again, ang role ng ating educational institutions in the promotion of mental health. If we have counselors in our educational systems or in the community, we need to let them provide the basic support services for individuals at risk or have mental health conditions. So promotion, prevention, and aftercare. Treatment can be given to our linkage or can be provided from our linkages with other agencies and organizations. Now, clear din po sa RA 11036 na all public and private educational institutions shall be required to have a complement of mental health professionals. I'm from Iloilo, and these past few weeks, there are a number of suicides reported over our local media. There's a rise. And even our school division offices, the office here in Iloilo, is quite alarmed with that, with cases. No? So very important sana para sa ating mga decision makers, sa ating policy makers to prioritize these mental health professionals. Now, of course, counselors can work also in companies or in HR setting because of their program development as training officers. So when it comes to mental health, part ng services also is to raise awareness, correct the stigma. We identify and provide support and facilitate access. Now, right now, we still have to wait with RA 11206, otherwise known as the Secondary School Guidance and Counseling Act. We don't know with the framers of the law, but if with the authors of the law, if they've only consulted with the counselors, I think, or if my memory serves me right, hindi po na consult dito yung PGCA when this bill was enacted. Since we focus only on the secondary school. Pero when we talk about career guidance, dapat sana sinimulan yan sa elementary or even in the kindergarten. Again, if we go back to the history, we follow the US model. So bakit ang tutok lang is the secondary students? Now we have to, again, since nandyan na po, the concern right now is after 2 years, RA 11206 ay wala pa ring pangil because wala pa pong IRR. For those with us na policymakers, even our legislators or legis staff who are with us, please take note po na wala pa pong IRR, yung RA 11206. Mas nakita pa po yung bakit daw kakulangan ng guidance counselor, pero yung IRR ng 11206 hindi pa po nila nakita. So the highlights of RA 11206, dapat daw may National Secondary Career Guidance and Counseling Program, which we have right now comprehensive guidance and counseling program na ginagawa even before the enactment of this law. Now we have daw CGCP or Career Guidance and Counseling Program Centers. We don't know kasi we have a base DepEd education facilities manual. For example, in the public schools, we have guidance office. Now merong barkada kontra droga pa, which is connected also with the guidance office. Then we have also teen centers, mga initiative ng ating local government units. Now, ano pa to? Are they one and the same? Or shall we build different centers for that? And of course, there should be a National Career Assessment Examination. So yun pong yung highlights ng ating RA 11206. So some ethical considerations, I have to wrap it up. Since we have fewer time, siguro we can request our secretariat to open our evaluation maybe later, maybe at 1 o'clock, so that may time po yung ating viewers or ang ating attendees to take their lunch before going back. Please message me, dear secretariat, if the proposal is okay with you. We will open by 1 p.m. Okay. Now we have to look on some ethical considerations in the practice of guidance and counseling. So ito po yung counselor supervision. Now, very important po na may counselor supervisors, yung ating mga counselors. Yun po yung nangyayari sa amin sa baba. Nangangapa kami, wala kaming puntahan because we don't have counselor supervision. In the government service, for example, in the higher education, guidance and counseling is under the Office of Student Affairs. So, for example, if ikaw lang isa yung counselor, pupunta ka sa next or sa supervisor mo, how can someone provide you with that responsibility for you to acquire professional competence or maintain or enhance your guidance and counseling practice if that one, hindi niya naman naintindihan yung practice of guidance and counseling. So very important to have counselor supervisors. Since we have partnership with the Australian Counseling Association, according sa kanila, yung supervision is a distinct professional activity in which education and training aim at developing science-informed practice are facilitated through collaborative and interpersonal process. So it involves observation, evaluation, feedback, and facilitation of supervisory, assessment, and acquisition of knowledge and skills by instruction, modeling, and mutual problem solving. So supervision here can be understood as mentoring. So we need mentors. Yun pong nangyayari ngayon sa baba, walang mentors. So kanya-kanyang survival. Now, one important consideration in guidance and counseling practice is the right to privileged communication. The right to privileged communication is one of the part ng law to protect the clients. It is presumed that the information na inopen up ni client is sa kanya. So the counselor, without the consent of a client, can be examined as to any communication. So pag walang consent si client, the counselor could not divulge any communication, written or verbal, without the consent or the expressed consent of the client. So that privileged communication covers or extends to the records and the secretary or clerk, which may not be examined, the knowledge of which has been acquired in such capacity. If na-overheard ni secretary, na-overheard ni clerk during the process, or nakita ni clerk yung or ni secretary yung psychological testing results, the secretary is covered by this protection. Okay. Yes, thank you so much, Sir Dan. Yung ating secretariat granted the request na we will open the evaluation at 1 o'clock, so that after this you can take a short lunch, then go back with your post test and evaluation. Thank you, Sir Dan. Then as part of the right to privileged communication, any evidence obtained in violation of this provision shall be inadmissible for the purpose of any proceeding. So if ginamit po ito na kumbaga without the permission of the client, so you cannot use it as in the legal principle, the fruit of the poisonous tree. Now, there is an exception to the rule. There is an exception to the rule sa ating right to privileged communication. So, anong exception natin? For counselors, they can break the right to privileged communication, or they can break confidentiality if, number one, the client or the service user poses harm to him or herself and the community. So there is a threat to him or herself, and she is a threat to the community. So for example, pag sinabi ng client or service user in the counseling session, I will bomb the airport. Okay, so as a counselor, you have the right to inform the authorities and to break that confidentiality. Okay. Another exception, of course, is the client or service user expressly waives his or her right. But before proceeding there, pag poses harm to him or herself and the community, since we are following the US model, For those who are in, well, for the general public, of course, there are two cases in the US, very popular cases wherein when it comes to confidentiality rule. So you might take consideration the Tarasov doctrine and the Orange Headland versus Orange County na cases. Now, another exception to the rule is client or service user expressly waives his or her right. Okay, so okay, you can divulge or you can break the confidentiality. Remember, the right to privileged communication is a setup of the law or the provision of the law to protect the client, okay? Not the counselor, but the information of the client. And if the order or if there is an order from the competent court of law, this is usually via subpoena. So your documents and or the counselor is being subpoenaed by the court, then the counselor can break the confidentiality based on the questions of the judge. Okay? Now, we are in a crash course guidance and counseling, but there are some considerations that we have to understand in the practice of guidance and counseling. So, sa isang page po ng counselor advocacy, so there is this post. Ang philosopher once said daw, ang trabaho ng RGC ay kaya din naman gawin ng isang RGC. You might, yes, but you don't have the license to do it. For example, there are other, actually there are, for example, kaya-kaya naman ng other, ng example, under bar, for example, or paralegal, yung mga ginagawa ng mga pleadings, yung mga gawain ng lawyer. But since you don't have the license to practice law, you cannot present or you cannot represent a client. Okay? Same holds true also with our RGCs. Yes, you might be more knowledgeable than the RGCs, but you don't have the license to do it. Or, for example, yung mga nagtatanong, or yes, those are saying that every counselor is, or every teacher is a guidance counselor. Yes, noon po. But with RA 9258, the practice of guidance and counseling was professionalized. Hence, you could not call yourself a guidance counselor if you are not a licensed one. Okay, so ito po mga hinanaing siguro ng ating mga counselors. Yung feeling na tinitipid sa oras si guidance counselor sa kanyang activities kasi strictly implemented ng no disruption of classes policy. Yes, sa ating mga it's we might reflect on this. Walang budget sa guidance services. Just imagine, yung guidance it is the right of a student to have guidance and counseling pero walang budget. Yung tipong pagproblema, diretso agad sa guidance. Pero hindi naman ini-include as one of the priority. For example, one consideration na binabanggit sa akin when it comes sa budget sa ating public public sector is that sa SIP, School Improvement Plan, which is good for 3 years. Tatlo lang yung priority areas. And most of the time, hindi naman priority yung guidance or yung guidance services. So, syempre, pag wala ka sa SIP, hindi ka priority area, you cannot have budget. I hope we need to consider that also. Yung another one, again, this is the stigma, the usual stigma. Yung feeling na hindi ka mental health professional at tingin kay guidance counselor sa school, taga-settle ng suntukan. Please, suntukan, please give that to our discipline officers. We are here to help, not to settle. What is black is black, what is white. That's for the ating discipline officers. And when it comes to training, hinahanapan ka pag may problema sa iyong lahat, pero wala kang specialized training. I hope na our educational leaders nagsisend or you are sending our guidance counselors to specialized trainings. We could not give what we do not have. So how can you demand something if hindi naman tayo nag-invest? So another one, kulang ang guidance counselors sa schools. Ito yung sinasabi palagi, even I've heard, we have heard to DepEd officials, walang supply ng guidance counselors. Yes. How can you have a supply if wala naman siyang return of investment or wala naman siyang career? It also happens in the United States. Usually si counselor, ito, pag na-absent siya, hinahanap. Walang substitute. Nagpa-pile up. Mababurn out si guidance counselor. So remember, there should be one guidance counselor to every 500 learners. This is based sa DBM. Sa ating HEIs, 1:1,000. And well, ito yung sadly, you have to invest, yet wala ka namang return of investment. Wala ka namang career path. So paano natin maparami yung counselors? If wala siyang mapupuntahan. Or if may mapupuntahan naman siya, hindi naman siya makaka-self-actualize. Just imagine, hanggang SG13 for life ka lang. Worse yung iba nga, I've known someone, 15 years na sa service, still guidance counselor 1. Kasi daw, walang budget for reclassification. Okay? So, to discuss more of that, please join me again on June 23, Becoming I Relevant. So, issues and challenges of the guidance counselors. Now, I have only presented a prelude of the issues and challenges. If you have questions right now, please type it sa ating YouTube chat box so that I can answer that even in a short period of time. Okay, so these are my references. So thank you very much. I may now look sa ating YouTube for questions. Okay. Okay. Yes. There is this question on the chaplain. This is consideration also. Again, if we practice guidance in counseling or if we practice psychology, dapat po license. So we have also to educate our church leaders na mag-license po yung ating mga chaplains. So even in the PGCA board, we have priests na licensed counselors and psychologists. We have Father R.C. Lumiked and Father Ted Gonzalez. No? So that's it po. I have a question. For example, another question. There is this question raised na yung isang supervisor, I don't know if this coming from private or public, kasi the supervisor daw is asking the counselor for the screenshots or the counseling notes of a counselor. Again, we could not do that unless, or even if you're a licensed counselor or a counselor supervisor, please, sa ating po mga example supervisors or school heads, the counseling notes is sa kanya po ng client. Unless, again, there is an express waiver na the child or the client will allow that his or her information be divulged. Okay. Let me see. How about in elementary school? There's no need. May kailangan din po. Ngayon, ang setup, kulang na kulang. Ito po yung sinasabi ng ilang uh, uh, DepEd officials. Ilan lang, hindi lahat. Kulang daw, walang supply yung guidance counselor. Our argument here is, yes, walang guidance counselor kasi just imagine nag-invest si guidance counselor, master's degree, bachelor's degree, kumuha ng board exam, yet wala siyang market na papasukan. Okay? So how can you attract someone? I have received certain messages nga from some DepEd teachers. Sabi, "Sir, I am now an ESP, edukasyon sa pagpakatao teacher. Hindi na po ako kumuha ng exam sa guidance counseling. I am a master sa guidance and counseling. Pero kasi syempre wala kang career path. Ang investment mo walang return. So better na lang mag-teacher siya. Then target niya is master teacher. Well, sa guidance counselor, nakatenga yung kanyang career progression. Another question, can a licensed psychometrician who undergo three-day training in guidance and counseling and was given title guidance associate? No po. Title guidance associate can conduct counseling services. No. Iba po yung with due respect sa ating mga psychometricians, I have talked to some of them din po. With respect to our psychometricians, iba po yung kanilang competencies. And even clear po yung ating PAP board and even the PRB of the psychology that psychometricians cannot do po counseling. Ito po yung isang concern din natin with the supply. Maraming supply yung psychometricians natin pero walang market. Okay? So, hindi po nangahulugan na ako po ay guidance counselor. I won't look on this aspect ng ating mga kapatid na psychometricians because nag-overlap yung ating practice. All we have to do is for some we have to respect each other siguro kung saan po tayo ang hangganan natin, saan po tayo competent, saan lang po tayo pwede. Okay. Thank you for that question. Very good question po. How about counselor supervisions? Yes. Counselor's compensation. Yes. We are only given until SG13 max. Yes, because outdated po yung DBM standards and even the standards ng mostly ng ating SUCs po are outdated, even po ng DepEd and even TESDA. Sa education sector on the government side, outdated po yung ating system. So HEIs, including the CHED, the TESDA, and the DepEd, since they are following the 1997 DEX and DBM manual, which is outdated, ilang years na po yan. And even the 2007 position classification manual ng DBM is outdated. So for those na may kakilala po sa DBM or even sa ating mga legislators, if they are thinking bakit wala, or they are wondering bakit walang guidance counselor, because there are some parts of our system po na needs improvement. Let me see other questions. Okay, let me go back. So if you have, I have to be clear this I don't have all the knowledge po. If you have something to point out, if along my explanation may mali po ako, you can email me through pgca.socmed social media, Socmed, SOCMED @gmail.com. Baka I've missed out something or baka may mali po sa aking explanation. Could it be possible that school guidance should have less subjects to handle? Very good question po ito. Why is it that especially in the public sector, no? Yung setup po ng items ng guidance counselors, if you look sa DBM, nakaangkla po ang item ni guidance counselor sa teaching related and teaching. So pwede pong bigyan ni school head ng load si guidance counselor over sa kaniyang ginagawa as guidance counselor. Okay? I hope makatao naman po yung ating mga school heads. Hindi na kaya ni guidance counselor kasi 1:500 yung ideal ratio. Yung sa US nga, it's 1:250 to 300 eh. Sa atin, still 1:500. Now, sa ganung aspect, based sa nature ng item ng guidance counselor, talagang pwede siyang bigyan ng load. That is why we are advocating to shift into another item na would talagang recognize the guidance counselor as a non-teaching personnel na talagang gagawin niya ang mental health and career guidance. Please take note na yung counselors natin are career specialists and mental health professionals. Question, what if my ongoing investigation sila prefect of discipline and they ask for counseling notes from a certain student who used to be a client? Okay. More of the cooperation siguro ni counselor. Part of the process is i-process ni counselor si client to tell the truth. So remember, the counselor is the ally of ng student. Ideally, kumbaga, siya po yung consentidor ng ating mga student. Because we have to understand saan po yan nanggagaling. Let me see other questions. Wow, thank you so much for your overwhelming response and questions. Sorry po, may apologies kung hindi ko masasagot po lahat. What should we do if as counselors are obliged by our supervisor to assume the role of discipline officer? That is why we need to assert also, and we need to educate po. We need to educate our supervisors na hindi po gawain ni counselor ang discipline. Much more yung registrar po. Kasi I have reports na natatanggap na may ganong situation. Good AM, sir. Meron po bang memorandum or guidelines na pwedeng mag-guidance designate in terms okay. Designation, maybe you can be in charge of a guidance office, but you cannot do the guidance services, especially yung testing, yung counseling. Okay. What is the difference between guidance counselor and advocate license and non-licensed? Maybe guidance advocate is the one who advocates, or maybe nag-advocate po ng practice of guidance and counseling. Does providing, another question po, does providing psychosocial support or PFA can be done by licensed professional? No. PFA can be done by everyone. If you're trained po, you can do that. PFA, again, you can watch or replay sa PFA. We have din po the PFA webinar. You can watch it po sa ating YouTube channel and soon sa ating Facebook. 3 principles: look, listen, and link. Okay? If hindi na kaya, if more than your competence, again, please link it po to our professionals. Okay? I am a BS HRM graduate and my LET. Pwede kong, I want to take Masters in Guidance. Pag nakatapos ka po ng guidance, Masters in Guidance, then you can take the board exam. But in admittance or admission to Masters program in Guidance and Counseling, it's up for the HEIs. If meron ka pang bridging or diretso ka na po. So it's up to the HEIs po. What doctors are guidance counselors referable to one refers as doctors or psychologists? Guidance are counselors po. And unless it can be doctor of medicine, just like example, we have one PGCA board member here, Doc Rick Panson, is both MD, EDD, PhD. Kompleto yon. So doctor siguro, yes. Doctors, yeah, if you have reached or you have a doctorate degree, then you can be doctors, called a doctor. And for psychologists, if you're a licensed psychologist, then you can be yan called a psychologist. Sir, meron po bang Magna Carta for RGCs? RGCs? Right now, we are processing that sa House of Representatives. Hopefully, you can support us sa ating uh, legislative action sa ating Senate. We need sponsor pa po sa Senate. Is there a movement, career path of counselors? Yes, we are doing that. Yung PGCA ngayon, we are intensifying for the improvement ng career path ng counselors. Right now, we are looking on the specializations also. Sad reality, so high ang requirements pero SG13. Yes, this is a common question. Bakit ilo-lower down? Is there a chance to lower down? Again, as I have explained, number one, just imagine you are given prescription by a pre-med student. Gusto mo pa ba yun? Another consideration, yung brain po ng tao matures or nagmamature or fully developed po, age of 25. Just imagine 20 years old, nagka-counseling. Kami nga po na master's degree holders nga at some of us na even nakapasa na po ng board exam. Medyo hindi pa nga kampante from time to time to do counseling. How much more for those na younger ones? It requires counseling as an art and science. Requires po length of practice, maturity, training, and so on and so forth. So, requirements, another to consider, we have Philippine Qualifications Framework. Just imagine, pumunta ka ng abroad, pero yung international standards, mas mababa ka pa doon. So just imagine the PQF. We are at par with our international or with other countries when it comes to qualification ng counselors. Then you have to lower it down. Is it logical? Okay, so those are the things to consider from the question of from this one. Yes. Let me see. Yes, if you are master's degree, yes, you can take po ng board exam. Yes, thank you so much for your questions. Siguro I will entertain last two questions. Same din po. Basta nakatapos ka ng master's degree, minimum of master's degree in guidance and counseling, you can take the board exam. Ano pong pwede gawin ng mga guidance designates na hindi career-related naman yung problem ng students? Again, number one, you can do PFA, which included po yung look, listen, and link. So you have to refer that. That is why we are calling po sa ating educational sector in the government to immediately take actions on this one. Kasi every minute na pinapalagpas natin po yung concern when it comes sa mental health, sa guidance and counseling po, as provided by our laws, number one, syempre, it seems that tayo po naman na sa government, tayo po yung number one child rights violator kasi it is a right of a student to avail guidance and counseling services pero walang guidance counselor. Okay? And number two, very important din yon na we have to put up a system on this one. If graduate po ng PhD, yes, because the minimum, pwede po mag-take ng licensure exam, yes, because the minimum qualification is master's degree. There is a question on trauma. Let me see. Saan po yun? Okay. Okay, hindi ko makita yung there is a question related on trauma. But anyway, if you have other concerns, especially with the issues and concerns ng ating mga guidance counselors, please join me again on the 23rd. We will discuss more on that. Okay. So before we end, little reminder lang po. The PGCA is with the NCMH on the providing. We are in partnership with the NCMH on the provision of telemental health. Okay, so for our repat Filipinos, healthcare workers, and the general public, you can visit po the NCMH Facebook page, or you can book using that one. So 1 o'clock po yung ating post-test and evaluation. Please answer po. You have only 45 minutes. A post in the PGCA official page, doon po yung link at 1 p.m. Pag nakita nyo po yung certificate, doon po yung link sa post. So please give us time to provide your e-certificates because we are dealing with thousands. Please email if you have concerns to PGCA at PGCA certificate at gmail.com. Then other seminars will be in separate posts. So ito po yung amin na naibigay na webinar series. Then this one on Thursday, we will have Father Ted, 10 to 11:30 a.m. Mental Health Lessons from the Masters. Okay. So thank you very much and hope to see you next Thursday. So with that, thank you and good